Your expertise is on nutrition and its impact on longevity and disease prevention, and to some degree disease treatment through the lens of fasting. So maybe, in your own words, kind of describe, your research and kind of the thesis of the work that you do.
Let's say 50% of what we do is what you just described, so the fasting mimicking diet. And the origin of that is in something called calorie restriction, which we talked about in the past. And the fact that, my former mentor was, one of the pioneers of calorie restriction, which is just, what happens in a normal person that has a normal diet if you reduce the calories by 20, 25%. And my observation that was just not feasible and not very difficult for people to do, and potentially giving problems and solutions, right? So then the fasting mimicking diet was, can we get the same effects as these phenomenal effects that calorie restriction has been demonstrated to have in monkeys and lots of different animals and in people without the problems, right? So that was the idea. Like, maybe you do this 5 days once a month, and maybe you do it as little as every 3 or 4 months, and that's what we're actually testing now in southern Italy on a big cohort. Then we're working on what I call the longevity diet, and that's a big part. And so, in fact, we have a number of papers that are going to be published in the next year or two, which is about what if you eat a normal diet. So we've been talking about Mediterranean diet and ketogenic diet. And so we just tested them all. We're testing a lot of these diets, and we're comparing them. So what if you can compare a vegan diet and a ketogenic diet and what I call the longevity diet, which is a pescatarian diet? How do these affect aging, longevity, age-related diseases, and also frailty and strength, right? So that's another big part of my laboratory. What do you eat every day? So let's move away from words like Mediterranean diet or Okinawa diet and just move into what is it about these diets that is so protective? Is it the protein? Is it the type of protein, right? So, for example, you could say high protein, low protein, and I will argue it's irrelevant, right? Because you can have a 5 to 10-fold difference in certain amino acids with the same level of proteins. If you eat legumes, and sometimes you can have that between different plant-based sources, right? You can have a 5-fold difference of certain essential amino acids between 2 different plant-based sources. So I think we probably need to move away from also same protein in levels, right? And move into amino acid profiles. Anyways, it's just, I think the pillar number 2 of my work is what you eat every day is going to have a huge impact on your health span and lifespan. And so what is it that you should change among all the things that you eat? And how do you personalize it, right? Because I always say, you can have eggplants and be very healthy, or you can have eggplants and be miserable because they happen to cause an inflammatory response in you, right? So I think diet is another important thing. And the third one is genetics, right? So we don't look at diet in a vacuum. We look at diet, whether it's fasting or eating, as how does it affect the genes that regulate the aging process? How does it affect IGF-1, growth hormone receptor? How does it affect TOR, RAS, and all these genes, these networks that are now clearly, and we talked about in the past, in simple organism, we can manipulate these genes. And if we combine fasting with genetic mutation, we make simple organism live 10 times longer, right? So we're trying to bring that to people. So, of course, you're going to make somebody live 10 times longer, but could you make him 50% longer, right? So I think it's possible, right? So from 80 to 120, that is possible. And I think all of this has to be understood very well and put together in a way that will cause the benefits without the problems, or without generating new problems.